Welcome to another episode of the No Ceilings podcast. I'm once again your host, Tyler Metcalf, joined as always by my co-host, Tyler Rucker. Tyler, how's it going?
Doing great. Pumped to get back at it with you. You know, we're going to be doing this a little bit more often, so I'm excited. We're getting some fun segments. March Madness is right around the corner, so it's getting exciting times around here, Metcalf. How are you doing? Most importantly, you know, you're the host. No one asked you how you're doing.
I'm pretty darn okay. Had a hell of a week traveling for a wedding last week. So entirely my fault why we couldn't get 2 pods out. But hopefully that will be the schedule going forward, which I'm super excited about. You mentioned it's already almost March Madness, which is blowing my mind. It feels like the season started last week, so I'm still trying to adjust to that new reality.
It's amazing, like how quick February's gone. Like I feel like at No Ceilings, we've been talking the last couple of weeks, or maybe even the last couple of months, where we're like, man, when March gets, it's going to be really crazy over here, just with all the stuff we've got planned. And now all of a sudden, I blinked, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's almost here. So I hear exactly what you're saying. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, we are pretty much here. Looking at schedules and seeing, 5 to 7 regular season games left is throwing me off, making me panic a little bit. But something we did earlier in the season with a much smaller sample size was panic meter and guys that we were panicking about, to different levels. Some not at all, some a little more than others. And now that we have a much more substantial sample size and stats and footage and film to go off of, I wanted to kind of revisit that because big boards across the land are expanding out to 35, 40, 60, 80 players for a lot of people. And we're getting a really good sense of where these guys should be landing, what types of players they are now, and how legitimate are the flashes that they've shown. So for this week's episode, or for today's episode, I wanted to revisit that. And we're both bringing 3 guys to the table. I don't know who you're going to bring up, so hopefully it's someone I'm in love with, so we can have a little bit of dialogue. But the guy I want to start off with is I feel bad bringing him up. He's a guy we've talked about the first time, and my feelings haven't changed a ton, and that's Jalen Duren.
Okay.
Center from Memphis. I just don't know what to do with him. I get the athleticism. He's a freak athlete, at least vertically. And his ability to finish at the rim with dunks is really impressive. I'm just not sure he really knows what he's doing on the court. And when you compare him to a guy like Mark Williams, who I'm super high on, I don't think they're that far apart. I get the ceilings are drastically different, but I think for Duran to really hit that ceiling, so many things are going to have to go right for him. I still have him late lottery, but I'm clinging to flashes and clinging to potential. Where are you at right now with Duran? Because I know earlier in the season you were kind of like, I'm struggling with it.
Yeah. So for everyone listening, like me and Ty talked about doing this segment. We wanted to kind of bring it back, and we stayed firm with like, we're not telling each other who we're picking. And I'm glad you brought up Duren, because literally that was the one guy I was looking at. And my problem is me and you were cold on him in the beginning of the year, because we've talked about this on previous No Ceilings podcasts, just like the athletic bigs that are really raw. You get nervous about scouting because, when you look at these guys, you can always seem to find the tail end of the first round bigs that potentially can offer similar, traits when it comes to impacting a team, impacting a rotation. And I'm like you, I think you worded it perfectly. We're clinging to these flashes because we understand how, young Duran is. That's always what me and you keep bringing up. It's like how young he is. He's going to be one of the youngest players in this draft class. I think I personally have him 11th. And it's just one of those weird things where I'm like, okay, I want to move him up. I just keep wanting to inch him up because I'm a believer of the flashes. I'm a believer
Mhm.
that he can be this freakish franchise center. Um, he's going to be 18 years old on draft day. I think even when I did the Draft Act podcast with Corey was like, he's going to be 18 years old when he plays his first game, which is just remarkable to think of. So I'm like you. We keep seeing flashes, and they're almost teasing like us because each one is something we all want to see happen. It's like a new tease, a new type of flash. So I don't know. I'm right there with you. I'm not really panicking on him. It's just tough to kind of figure out: is he going to unlock this skill playing in the NBA? Is he going to be this player that you just have to be patient with? Like he almost might need a red shirt his first year. I don't know because he recently had a strong game, showed some great plays there. I'm blanking off the top of my head who it was against, but I
Houston.
just, yeah, I'm like you. I'm lukewarm. Like I want to buy in, but I need to see more consistent flashes. And like he's shown a little bit of like touch with the outside shot, but I'm not in yet, and I want to be.
Yeah, the age and the athleticism I keep going back to because they're two just such unique aspects of who he is as a player right now, and he should be in high school right now, and he might be the most vertically explosive center in the country right now, which are two just an absurd combination that you really could ask for from a young center. But I want to start on the offensive end because I don't know what he is in the NBA. I think the vertical spacing is legitimate, but the way he operates from the dunker spot feels clunky. It doesn't feel like he has great spatial awareness of when and where to relocate or cut out of that. And I in the backdrop of all of these arguments is obviously the situation and their lack of ball handling, the lack of ball movement, the lack of shooting on that team. It's the worst situation I think he could possibly be in. So I can't emphasize that enough that I do believe that, but he still isn't showing that movement. He isn't showing that spatial awareness of when to cut in off the dunker spot, when to slip a screen versus really plant a firm screen. I don't trust the shot. I think you're a little higher on it than I am. I think his mechanics are a little meh, and the shot comes out flat a lot. And then something that everyone keeps going to is the passing and he could, and that he could be this awesome passer. We've seen some flashes of that out of the post with those one-handed over the shoulder stuff, and that's awesome, but those also come when he gets doubled. And I don't see a world where his post game is good enough that an NBA team is going to be like, let's go double team him. And if that's not happening, then those passing lanes vanish immediately. And I don't think he can create his own shot right now. Obviously, again, the age argument is there. I get that. But based on what he's showing, I think the ball skills are severely lacking. And I don't know if he's more than just a vertical spacing rim runner out of the pick and roll on offense.
Yeah, I think he's going to be, when I'm saying like he's shown some flashes with the shot, I'm right there with you. It's flashes, but you're like, okay, this looks like it potentially can develop into something with a lot of repetition and work. Because I'm like you, it's a bit of a line drive, it's very flat. He's shown some flashes in the paint, but I don't think he's shown some flashes on some post ups where I'm like, that's some nice footwork. I don't think he's anywhere close to being a guy that you feed him the ball and say, go to work on a consistent level. I think he's just too raw and still too much to do. I just think he's one of those guys where I think if a team could draft him and say, like, almost dummy down the offense while he continues to develop, where he's like, we don't need you to be a scoring asset right away. We need you to play good defense, rebound your ass off, and be a lob threat. Where I'm just looking at the mock drafts. I was just looking at Tankathon where I'm like, even like Portland, if he goes there with Dame, and it's like, hey, Dame's going to score. You got to go set screens and roll, and he's going to make life easy for you. Or even, San Antonio's been a team where it's been projected to take Duren, someone like that, where they have some young pieces, they have some wings, and you just put them somewhere where it's like you're going to take time to develop. We're not rushing you at all. I'm like you. He's just one of those prospects where I think he's just going to take a ton of development, and you have to be patient because I don't think the passing, like people have been comparing him to Bam. I don't even think he's close to Bam right now. I think the feel is way, way different than what Bam had coming out of college. But it's not saying it won't get there. It's just saying it might take a couple of years to get there.
Yeah, I think the Bam comparisons at this point are pretty ludicrous. And,
right.
I get the pushback is that, well, Bam never showed any of that stuff at Kentucky. It's like, okay, yeah, well, Karl Anthony Towns also didn't really show that he was the best shooting big man ever at Kentucky either. And yet here we are. So Duran is still kind of being put in positions to show this stuff, and he isn't at a consistent basis. You mentioned some potential landing spots. I think San Antonio makes a lot of sense, especially with the emergence of DeJounte Murray at point. I think having that really quality point guard is going to be crucial for him. Even Oklahoma City, I think, would be really good because they'll be patient. They have a lot of really, really impressive on-ball creators. And then even like if he falls some, Charlotte at 14, well, they're currently at 14, who, they'll change. But playing there and just being asked to screen, rim run for LaMelo, and then being that, drop coverage big, I think that would be really important for him, because I struggle to see a world where he is a really effective defender in a scheme that's not drop coverage. I know a lot of people are kind of hyping him up as like this versatile, potentially switchable big. I don't see it. I think he's really heavy footed. I think it was Corey who threw out, there's either you or Corey who threw out a question a couple weeks ago on, is Duren heavy footed, in the No Ceilings chat. And I think he is. I think he has really slow feet. I think he is.
I do too. And Corey keeps telling me I'm crazy. And I'm like, man, he looks like he has cinder blocks for feet sometimes. And I forget how Corey worded it, but I was like, can you please explain that in English? He's like, he's got heavy and quick feet. I was like, that doesn't exist.
That's not helpful. But like, so who I keep comparing him to is like Mark Williams, and the way Mark Williams moves his feet and flips his hips and is always on balance. We never see that. Well, I shouldn't say never. We don't see that as much from Duren. And I think for quicker guards, it's a lot easier to turn the corner on Duren than it is a guy like Mark Williams. And I think Duren is way more eager to flip his hips to turn and chase than to slide his feet and use his length to contain. A lot of that is, fundamental stuff that you learn and develop and get better at. So I'm not ruling it out, but what we always talk about is we get scared of these uber athletic guys who have always just relied on their athleticism and strength. And Duren continues to seem like he's purely relying on his athleticism and strength. And if those technical skills on the defensive end don't really pick up, I don't think he's going to be the versatile defender that a lot of people are pegging him as. Where are you at with him defensively?
You bring up a really good point about Mark Williams compared to Duran, because I haven't really thought of this until you just said that. And Mark went back for his sophomore year. Yeah. He's obviously, it looks like the development has definitely been fantastic, and Duran could be a guy like that where it's like another year he takes off. But I think the thing with, and I didn't want to go off this too long, but I think the thing with Mark Williams that has me always excited compared to Duran is Mark Williams' acceleration looks way quicker than Duran. I feel like Duran's this load up process to get to moving side to side. I feel like when Mark Williams wants to get somewhere, he quickly goes 0 to 100 as fast as he can. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't get blown by or stuff like that, but I think the energy, the effort is there more consistently, where he realizes oh, I got to move. And then he's just going all out. Duren, just like I said, he has the potential to be a dominant force when it comes to shot blocking, just because of his vertical pop, his athleticism, for sure. I'm right there. I'm not sold on the versatility with guarding 1 through 5. It's so hard to just say big men can always guard 1 through 5, because it's just it's just really tough to always pencil those guys into it. So I'm not sold there. He's shown some nice containment on the perimeter with some guys. Like he's done a good job contesting. His length has helped him out on that. Maybe his next team can kind of put him in a position where, like, you're lengthy, you could take another step back and still be fine. You'll never know. It is dependent on what system he falls and if the right staff gets their hands on him. I just think this is going to be one that puzzles us the rest of the year because, Memphis, bearing some shocker, I don't think it's going to be playing into the tourney. And I just think it's going to be this buzz of him getting in front of teams in pre-drafts and our team's convinced that he looks better and he could be better than one nightmare year at Memphis. I think it's just going to keep puzzling us as evaluators. But I would say the defense is definitely something that I want to go back and just like watch like a hawk because I'm like you. I'm puzzling with this guy, and it's been this way the whole year. When I see flashes, I get excited, and then they seem like they go away for 3 long months, or what I'm trying to say. It's just like, come back, please. I want more.
Yeah, so I currently have him at 11 because the situation, the age, the explosiveness, all that. I know how special it could be. I need to see like a 5-game stretch of it constantly showing up on a consistent basis. But we've talked enough, Duran. We've talked about him before. We'll talk about him again, especially once he gets in these empty gyms and his Adonis figure just stuns these old white front offices.
Which will do.
Wait,
am I up?
Yeah. Who's the first guy?
All right. I'm gonna bring up someone that me and you love pretty closely because I feel like it's important that we need to talk about it. And it's gonna be a little close to your heart. But I'm struggling with our boy Caleb Watson.
Houstan.
Caleb Houstan. See, I'm combining 2 people now. Caleb Houstan. Wow, that'd be fun if they were both combined. I don't know. Here's why I'm struggling. And it's not like a panic meter. It's just one of those, like, I don't know if he should declare. And that's where I'm struggling right now. I'm like, okay, because like he was struggling in the beginning of the year. I've been tracking him because I've loved him. He had a nice stretch of like 4 games where he finished in double figures. Then he goes to 6 points. Then he has an 11-point bounce back, then 6 points, then 14, and then 5. So I just don't know if it's, and you're Mr. Michigan, so you could tell me this. Like, I still love his feel. I love the way he plays the game. I think he does so much more that shows up not in the box score. I think NBA teams could still be fascinated with Caleb Houstan, especially like a playoff team. If they get their hands on him, might be like, oh, we got him. Like, we're going to go jump all over this kid because he's a perfect asset to groom just because of his basketball awareness, his feel for the game on the floor, like both ways. I just don't know if he should declare. And that's why I'm asking you, Mr. Michigan, Tyler Metcalf, like, am I freaking out about Caleb Houstan? Does he stay? Or do you think he's the type of player that's going to intrigue smart front offices enough where they're going to be like, could this be a promise guy? I just thought of that while I'm talking to you. Could this be an NBA team being like, if you're there at 27, we're taking you? You know what I'm trying to
say. You just read my mind on that, where I was going to answer that.
We do this, folks. That's why we do this. That's why we got chemistry every day. No,
so if I was like a fully cemented playoff team like Bucks or even Memphis or Chicago or Miami, and I don't need a rookie to come in and really contribute right now. I'm making him a promise in that 20 to 30 range at wherever we land, and I'm like, we will bring you in, we'll get you in a weight training program, we will get you in a shooting program, and all of it will become consistent, and you will be NBA ready by year 2. Because I think the mental aspect of the game, he's NBA ready, especially on offense, because the way he moves off ball, the way he moves the ball, and the way he runs in transition and makes these awesome runs that pull defenders, that create cutting lanes or driving lanes for his teammates. So much of his off-ball movement creates for others and not just himself. The outside shooting's up to like 36% on the year, which still isn't where we wanted it to be for him coming into the season. But I think it's all really going to come down to what does he want? Does he want to be a top 10 pick or does he want to be in the NBA? And I think kind of similar to Duran, where if Houston gets in one of these or gets in an empty gym and just starts knocking down threes and going through the work, and an NBA front office gets really impressed with his feel and his IQ and his passing, I think a promise at the end of the first is more than warranted. And I still have him at 17, which I know is a lot higher than most people. But I really believe in like that long term development.
It's funny, while you were talking about that, I'm looking at his game logs. First 7 games of the year, he was shooting 28%. You know what he's shooting his last 8 games from three?
What's it, like 40?
44%. So I'm like you, because I also looked while you were talking about like playoff teams that would want him. And you look at, like, I'm going through all these teams. Memphis, this is all like 25 and on. I'm Tankathon's latest mock draft. Like Memphis, Chicago, Miami, Golden State. I feel every single team would be like, yes, we would love Caleb Houstan. Like, he would be a fantastic early bench asset that they don't need him to do much. They need him to come in and play basketball the right way. And I just think, like, even if you have him at the end of the first in your big board or, early second round, I still think that's the type of guy teams would be like, nightmare year, great tools, knows how to play the game, will be a fantastic bench asset. Yes, like, bring him on in. So I was just thinking of that. That could be a promise guy. And as nightmare of a year he has, that still could be an intriguing guy. Are they going to make the tourney?
That win
or
over
do they
Purdue
need to win?
certainly helped. They're going to have to win a couple big ones down the stretch here. And losing to Ohio State didn't help. Beating number 3 Purdue in huge fashion was a monster win for them. And I think they're going to be right there on the edge. I think if they make like the semis of the Big Ten tournament, I think that would probably put them in. But I think that's a lot to ask given how that team is played. And kind of similar to Duran, I think Caleb Houstan is another one of those guys who would significantly benefit from having a more kind of game managing point guard. Because Devontae Jones, unfortunately, is not to take shots unnecessarily at Devontae Jones. He's a nice scoring guard in college, but not a guy that really elevates those around him.
The Warriors are gonna draft him and just say, Klay Thompson's your best friend. Don't ever leave his side. And they're gonna turn all. It's gonna be beautiful. Hit me with your next guy.
So next up, I'm pretty sure you are kind of with me on this. Blake Wesley.
I thought you were gonna. Okay, Blake Wesley.
Yeah.
Oh no, this is who I was gonna say. Oh gosh, I'm sorry for everyone that loves Blake Wesley. This is gonna get dangerous.
I don't get it. I've seen people have him top 10. Among players in high major conferences, he has the 7th highest usage rate, and I think he's one of the most inefficient scoring guards in the country. 41% from the floor, 31% from 3, 64% from the line. I think the shooting mechanics are a travesty and pretty much different on every shot. When he shoots off the catch, he brings it down to his left hip and up across his body and then releases in a different spot.
You saw that. Go ahead.
I think he frequently drives without a plan. And there was, when I did that Friday screener on Mark Williams pick and roll defense, there was one where he tried to drive into the chest of Mark Williams and Williams just ate him. He doesn't have NBA strength yet. I'm encouraged by the defense. I like his defensive effort. I think that's all really promising. But the way he plays on offense suggests that he should be a 20-point per game scorer on decent efficiency, and he is just a chucker who doesn't really have much of a plan. Some of the space creation flashes are interesting, but those shooting mechanics are so broken that I don't know how an NBA team is like, yeah, here's the ball, go create anything. Um, yeah, so I have Wesley in like the mid second because I like the defense. I think there are some intriguing things with the athleticism, and then the space creation I think is legitimate eventually, but for an NBA team to see his production, see those shooting mechanics, and really buy in the first round, I don't understand it.
For everyone listening, this isn't meant to hate on a guy
No,
because
no,
we have a lot of people at No Ceilings that are big Blake Wesley
yes,
supporters. Um, but I don't get it. I'm right there with you, and I'm not trying to rag on him. I think there's tools. I think there's some
hmm
serious tools that can develop. I just don't think this is like, I think he should go back. I think he
yeah,
should look at Jaden Ivey and watch what he just did in 1 year. And I think he should be like, if I do that, I'm going to skyrocket in the next draft class because like there's good tools. He's got good size. He's got some shiftiness. I'm really happy that you called out that shooting form, the load up, because a lot of people have been talking to me about Wesley, and I was like, okay, I'll check him out. And the first time I watched them, I saw like an example of that, and I was like, whoa! I was like, he brings it to like his knee on some shots, and some
yeah, and
shots he
it's
gets it up
really
super quick.
exaggerated.
Yeah, it's really exaggerated. It's like a robotic loading process. And then you see some where he like gets it up really fast. So I'm like, okay, he just got to get rid of that as fast as possible. And I know some people might point out, well, like, oh, he had space to load up. And it's like, no, that space is going to like shorten up in the NBA. And it was just like amazing how low he brought it. The shot selection, like I understand he's probably being asked to carry the load
Yeah,
offensively, playing for Notre Dame. Like I get all of that stuff, but there's just some wild, erratic shots. And I mean, I've talked about this before. I don't like to overanalyze like one stretch of the year, but I do think it's important to track how a prospect is progressing. And like beginning of the year, his first 18 games, he was 15, 3, 2, shooting 44.7% from the field, 33.3% from three. Like that's fine. Okay, that's fine.
hmm
You'd like to see the 3-point be a little bit better. The last 7 games, he's 12 points a game, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. He's shooting 32% from the field and 25% from three. So everyone that was like, oh, top 10, I was like, whoa, what? Like, I understand there's some offensive firepower there. Like, he's got some tools, but I was like, we need more consistency. I know he's got good size at like 6'5". I still think he's a little thin framed.
hmm
I also just don't know, like, is this guy, you're drafting him as a ball handler, like primary ball handler? Are you dressing him as an off guard? Like, there's just too many questions. And I'm guilty of saying, like, I need to watch Blake Wesley way more. I'm just concerned of like the brief sample size I've watched that I was just a little bit like, I was like, I have him as I think I have him 35th right now. I felt bold about having him that high. Just saying, like, I kept looking, I was like, I kind of want to move him down, and I just need to watch him more. But I'm right there with you. I think there's flashes. I just think this is a guy that, like, he's having a rough stretch right now. Maybe he does some wonders with another year where he could really benefit from working on his craft and skyrocketing up the boards.
yeah. I have him at 41 right now because I just don't see how his body can hold up against NBA competition, and probably admittedly it wouldn't. He'd probably be more G League route and developmental. I think he's gonna at this point. I think he's a multi-year project. The flashes are really interesting. The like when it's clicking for him, it's like, oh, okay, now I'm kind of seeing it. It's just so infrequent that we are really seeing those flashes, and I just those shooting mechanics are brutal. But every time I watch him, someone who pops to mind who is one of these, you know, legitimate development success stories is Jordan Poole. And the way they kind of play, I don't think is too dissimilar. Do you think that he could reach something like that? I think that would be a really, really great outcome for him. And I get that he's a much better defender currently now than Jordan Poole was at this point in college? Or do you think that he has the tools to really excel past that and be maybe kind of a combo starting scoring guard?
I definitely think there's that route. I'm just trying to figure out, like, are you considering him a two at the next level? Because like Poole, it's always funny because whenever Poole gets brought up, I was like, that was one of my scariest evaluations ever because I was just like, no, like
No.
I was just horrified of the shot selection. And he went to the right team. He went to a team that was like, you got to work on your craft. You got to spend some time in the G League. He worked his butt off. Like, I think it's awesome. It's not like I
Yeah.
was rooting against him. I just was like the erratic shot selection in college. Someone's got to, tone it down a little bit. Now he's put in the time. He's thriving with Golden State. So yeah, if he could go to a team like that, that's like, hey, that ain't going to work right out of the gate. You're going to have to earn your minutes. You're going to have to earn your shots because you can't just be this potential late first round pick, or you can't even be an early pick and just expect that if you're playing with a bunch of veterans, you're going to get all the looks in the world. So I definitely think there's that path. I just think he might benefit from being this guy that's like, okay, had a little tough stretch at the end of the year. What if I spend all off seasons going to work and get back and just take off for Notre Dame next year? So I don't know. I mean, what do you think he still declares Metcalf? Like, what would you think? Throw the opinion about how we feel about him. Like, if you're looking at him as a prospect.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is going to come down to what happens in like those pre-draft workouts with him, and I think he could be one of those guys, similar to what we mentioned with Houstan, as being like a potential promise.
Yes.
Kind of how Jordan Poole was with the Warriors, because that's what happened with him. I mean, I think he would be better served to go back for another year, really work on his body, really work on those shooting mechanics. But then I'm not sure that going back to school for another year is the best spot for him to do that, because I think those shooting mechanics need a ton of work, and maybe the NBA is the best spot for him to get that. So I think if he gets a promise, I think he should go and be a first round pick, get and be willing to put the work in and stuff like that. But if NBA teams are like, yeah, like I'm not so sure. I'm not, you got to get stronger. You have to be more creative around the rim. You have to have a better plan when you drive. You have to really fix these shooting mechanics and show a consistent mechanical change, even if the percentages don't really jump. Just showing that improved mechanics on a nightly basis. If they're giving him that feedback, then I would say go back for another year, do that, work your ass off over the summer, do what Jaden Ivey did, and really show that, okay, yeah, I can improve, I can get stronger, I can be a better shooter. And then I would be more comfortable with, like, okay, yes, this is a first round guy, but right now I don't see him as a first round talent.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. Okay, enough of hating on Blake Wesley. Sorry, Notre Dame fans, Notre Dame. I can't get into this guy. I'm trying. I can't do it. JD Davison, Alabama. So I have this thing with athletic freak point guards because you get by in high school. You don't get by. You dominate high school with your athleticism because you're going to be 90% of the time even higher, just the best player athletically on the court. So you can hide a lot of your weaknesses or holes in your game just by pure athleticism and being, quicker, a better jumper and all that stuff. And I just always get a little cautious with guys that still have to figure out how to be a point guard. And it's not just like scoring or, different putting teammates in position to succeed. You have to understand like how to read defenses, all that stuff. And I just see some flashes with Davison, but they're too rare in my opinion. Yeah. And it could be the system, or it could just be the situation he's in with Bama. Like they have a ton of guards on that roster that can really play. But he seems like a guy that needs to go back to me. And, let me just say this out there. Like, I'm not trying to root against anyone. I'm not saying like, oh, all these guys need to go back. They're no good. I'm just saying like maybe another year for some of these guys, they could all of a sudden become a mid first round pick and make a lot more money and have a better long-term security. That's what I'm rooting for with every prospect. So I don't know. I'm interested to get your thoughts about Davison. You took my Blake Wesley, so I kind of had to pivot and figure out someone. And then I was just looking at my big board, and he's been a guy that's puzzled me. I understand people are high on him. I get it. Like, it's very exciting when you have an athletic point guard, and I think he's supposed to have like freakish wingspan. He's going to have some great measurements. I just think he might need some more time to learn how to play with his speed. Because like the Gonzaga game, if you go back and watch that, you're like, shit, this guy can play. And then you all of a sudden see a little bit more come back down to earth, and there's some inconsistencies. So I just want to see a more consistent slate of performances, because I do feel like it's been a bit of a roller coaster. And maybe, like I said, maybe that's just because he's playing with the roster that almost kind of goes with the hot hand when it comes to the guards and the ball handlers. So what are you thinking, Ty? Hit me with it.
I'm kind of out on Davison as a guy for this year. And you mentioned it. I can't stress it enough in this podcast, any previous podcast, or any future podcasts. None of this is personal. We're never rooting against these guys. We always want them to succeed and do well. And we are full supporters of going back to school for another year or 2 or 3 or however long it takes. I think he's more athlete than basketball player right now. The athleticism is really impressive. That huge dunk that he had on Walker Kessler is enough evidence to be like, okay, yeah, this dude's a 95th percentile athlete at his position. Really good getting to the rim, just awesome in transition. It's everything else, unfortunately, and I don't trust the shot. I think his impact. I think he constantly disappears from games. Um, I his ability to kind of improvise, I think, isn't that great. And for someone of that athleticism, once you drive at that speed, at that velocity, you really have to be able to make decisions quickly and react to what the defensive rotations or lack thereof are doing. And I don't think he does that very well. And he gets stripped on drives a lot. I think his ball security is pretty rough. So I absolutely think going back for another year, letting the game mentally slow down a bit for him right now, because right now the way he plays at such a high pace, but it seems like his processing is also frantically, going that speed, where if he can come back for another year and just get that maturity, that understanding, and mentally slow the game down, I think that'll do wonders for him, because that athleticism, few are going to match him in that realm. Um, and like you mentioned, there are flashes that's like, oh, okay, yes. And, I think a lot of those come when he attacks off the dribble and like makes these really impressive kick out passes. And then, so if he can come back and show more of that for another year and really a high understanding of how to dissect a defense, or not even a high understanding, just an improved and more consistent understanding, I think that would be so important for him and his draft stock and just his, future development as a professional player.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you're saying, we're not rooting against these kids. There's talent there. Like, I'm not trying to dog JD Davison. Like, he has talent. There is plenty of tools to get exciting about. I'm just saying he might need another year for it all to come together and be the player that we think he's going to be. Because, like, he's having a solid stretch of games. He's had, 11, 18, and 14 in his last 5 games, but he's also had a game where he had 0 points. So, I mean, and that's in 24 minutes. There's just all over the place. And his 11-point performance, he had 6 turnovers. So it's just like you're saying, I think this is a guy that needs that time to come back, have the game slow down, because now he's just playing, full pedal to the metal. And sometimes it's going to get him in trouble, because he's all these lanes that were there in high school for him to blow by guys. Now they're collapsing and he's having to make quick decisions, like you're saying. So I definitely think it's a guy that has all the talent. Like, he has the talent to be a legit point guard at the next level. He just might need some more time to work on that craft. And I think it could just be in his better interest to have another year in which he could become a first-round pick, get some security, compared to maybe if he goes out this year, he ends up falling and goes in the second round, and then he's battling for life to make it to a roster. I mean, there's a lot of question marks. But this also could be a guy that goes to the combine and plays and tears everyone apart, and all of a sudden, becomes this guy that everyone's like, whoa, okay, maybe it's the Josh Primo effect where we talked about that in the last pod. Like maybe JD Davidson's the guy where you draft him a year early, like the pre-draft process. So, yeah, hit me. What you got next? This is your third and final, right?
Yeah. So this is the last one. This is a guy who I've had in the 30s for the last couple of years until he decided to go back. Hasn't had a tough year. I'm not out on him. I'm confused by him. I'm mid-tier panic meter, and that might not even be the right term, but Terrence Shannon Jr.
Okay.
Just I don't know what it is. His production seems very boomer bust this year, where it's 20 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, or it's like he wasn't even there. I think I'm hoping part of that is due to kind of injuries. He's been in and out of the lineup for a lot of the year. There's so much that I still really like. And he's awesome in transition, shooting off the catch when he's unguarded is in the 94th percentile, which is encouraging, 92nd percentile around the basket. But there's almost no on-ball creation to his game, 13th percentile in pick and roll, 19th percentile in isolation. But I'm not too worried about that in the NBA because I don't think he'll ever really be asked to do that. I think it'll mostly be, hey, can you knock down corner threes? Can you defend? Can you run in transition? And those are all things he can do. I don't know what to do with the inconsistent production. And it seems he's been a guy who's been really hyped up by draft Twitter these last couple of years. And it seems to almost have fallen silent this year with him. I've liked what I've seen the previous years. I want to base it just on the inconsistencies this year on nagging injuries or illnesses, or I don't remember exactly what's kept him out of games. But where are you at with Shannon?
Frustrated because I was a big Terrence Shannon believer last year.
Yeah,
I thought he was probably going to end up being sort of like an early second round guy. And I was hoping for a jump back. I was pretty pumped when he said that he's going to go back. I was like, okay, he could really take another step forward if that offensive game comes around, because you know how special he can be defensively. He's got some athleticism. He's got the potential to guard multiple positions at a high level. I don't know where you're at with him this year if you're looking at him as like an NBA team, because you see the intrigue. I think someone's probably going to be drooling over Herb Jones of what he's done this year with the Pelicans and being like, could this be Terrence Shannon? But like Herb was also a fantastic playmaker and asset for Bama last year. I don't know about Shannon. He's one of those guys puzzling me too. That's probably going to be like when I'm having a really annoying day, I'll turn on Tan and Sharon's film and be like, okay, let's figure this out. Like, what's going on here? Because I do think the defense could make him an intriguing second round flyer for some smart team where they're like, hey, if we could just have a defensive, like we need a wing who can defend the crap out of the ball. I think Terrence Shannon's going to be pretty high on your board if you're trying to find some value in the second. So I just don't know. I don't really know where to put him in my board right now. Kind of just go all over the place because I don't know if you're thinking of upside or what he could become, or you're still dreaming of like, hey, maybe this was just a nightmare year. I know Texas Tech had a lot of pieces leave. Yeah, I'm right there with you. That's a really good one. I didn't even think of that. I just feel like in this draft, you're going to get to a range in the second where like Shannon becomes enticing. Like now I'm just spitballing off the top of my head. Like there's going to be a lot of uncertainty with the second round. And I think teams might target specific skill sets. And I think Shannon's defense really could save him because he could be a guy that you put in the G League early to work on the offense. And if that could come around on a respectable level where he's becoming a dangerous rotation defender who could spot up and hit some shots, yeah, he might be someone that hangs around the league for a long time. So I don't know. That's an interesting one. You got me puzzled now.
Yeah, and it's just I expected more. I think a lot of it is a symptom of expectations because I expected so much more from him this year, and circumstances out of his control have kept him out of some games. So I really want to chalk it up to that. But then it's like I look at my rankings and based on production and what he's done this year, it's like, well, I'm struggling to have you higher than the 50s, and
Right.
I've given his athleticism and where I've had him the previous 2 years, it feels like I should have him higher, but then there also isn't this extraordinary growth that I wanted him to show, where it's like, okay, now the outside shooting's in the high 30s or whatever, and it's down to 32% on almost 4 attempts a game, but the free throw percentage is up to 85 on 3 attempts a game. So it's just the inconsistencies this year. I'm really hoping that he has a really strong end to the season, or at least just a consistent end to the season. I want to see like a really steady stretch of play from him on both ends of the floor because I think he has it in there. I just haven't seen a ton of it this year. And I just worry that, okay, well, maybe he has to go back to school for his senior season. And, it is what it is. But like at this point, I'm kind of questioning if he's even, the best NBA prospect on that team, which is a spot I did not expect coming into the season.
Yeah, I that definitely is. It's also problematic if you start watching a team drooling over a guy and you're like, okay, you might not even be the best prospect on this team. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like there's been a step forward.
Yeah.
It seems like
Which
we're
is a
kind
problem.
of stuck in the mud. Yeah, which is a problem. And I'm like you. Maybe it is the injuries. I know he's been kind of banged up a little bit for the entire year. He had a strong stretch to start out the year, and then it just kind of seems like it's just been hit or miss every game since. So I'm like you. Oh boy, I have one more, and I kind of want to. Can I get a little crazy with this? Is that okay
please.
with you?
It'd be
All
weird
right.
if you didn't.
I'm gonna call myself out and switch this up. I'm not worried about a prospect. I'm worried that I don't love him enough. And I know that I think you like this guy a lot, so this might be fun. I'm worried I'm worried I'm being a wimp and I'm not ballsy enough to say that I love Iverson Molinar more than I do. I have him 36th on my big board. Yes,
Okay.
I hear all of you out there saying that's a little rich. I think it's low. I love everything he does. Everyone's going to point out the 3-point percentage. I'm fine with it. I think he's been carrying the load offensively. He's got to do a lot for that team. I just love the way he plays the game. I really do think this is a guy that, with an uncertain point guard class, there's questions everywhere. I just feel like I need to be more ballsy and say Molinar needs to be going a lot higher than he should. And I'm not talking like lottery. I'm just saying like he seems like a late first for a team that's like, we need point guard, a rotation point guard to, like, for some strong depth. Like, he just plays the game the right way. He understands what he's supposed to do. I love his feel. I don't know. That's just a wild card one. I just, every time I watch him or look at his name on my board, I'm like, man, I deserve to move you up. I don't know what's holding me back. And like I said, I understand if everyone wants to point out his 3-point percentage, but I do think the guy can hit the three from pretty deep when he gets the chance. I think he plays the game the right way. He seems always under control, just calm, and like there's no panic. Like JD Davison needs to lock himself in a room and watch how Molinar uses his gears, and it would unlock a whole nother world. But bad jokes aside, tell me what you're thinking, Metcalf.
So I have Molinar at 32 right now.
Good. Okay. I like this.
So Nick and I actually just got done talking about him on the NBA Deep Dives podcast, and Nick wrote about him last week for No Ceilings, and Nick was saying that he just moved him into the first round, even. Um, I wouldn't be stunned if he's the second best point guard from this class, especially depending on how you kind of classify Dyson Daniels. Um, I have him one spot behind Taron Armstrong because I just can't quit Taron Armstrong right now.
Can't quit.
But I'll run through this. So you brought up the outside shooting. It's at 29% from three right now. Not good.
Right,
It
not
was
good.
at 30. It was at 37% his freshman year, 43.6% last year, and his free throw percentage has done nothing but climb from 76% to 80 to now 89.5%.
So
Really strong.
everything you just said is really important for everyone
Right.
listening because like he's shown he can be lethal from outside. I just think now he's taking on this bigger offensive role. And you can see that it's hurting the percentages. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. That's just really important. And
No.
the free throw percentages is important too.
Yeah, it's just they're really strong indicators, and it makes the outside percentage this year feel a little more fluky. But I think the increased load is important. Other kind of encouraging indicators given about his touch are he's in the 96th percentile on runners, 93rd percentile around the basket. He's in the 81st percentile shooting off the catch unguarded. It's the dribble off the jumper that really hurts him. He's in the 21st percentile there, and then the 27th percentile shooting off the catch when he's guarded. I don't know what it is with the shot from the mid range. It looks perfect. It looks fluid. It looks consistent. And then he stretches it out to three, and it's almost like there's like this like weird little hitch at the top where he's trying to generate a little more power. So I don't know if it's just a strength thing, or he's just getting tired because of the the higher offensive responsibilities that he has this year. But the other thing that you said is that he always seems under control. And I could not agree more with that because I absolutely adore his decision making. He's not this flashy playmaker where he's manipulating defenses and all this stuff, but I think he's a legitimate three-level scorer, which allows him to pretty regularly beat that first line of defenders and get into the paint and get into that mid-range. And then his decision making from there has been so impressive with just countering whatever the defensive rotation is and taking whatever they give him, whether it's a simple kick out, whether it's a dump off to a cutter, whether it's a floater, hesitation to a layup. It's almost like he's just constantly making the right decisions. And, I don't know if he has starting level point guard upside, but I certainly think he could be a starter next to a more kind of jumbo initiator, or at least be a six man point guard off the bench. So offensively, I just, I always kind of separate playmakers and passers. I think he's an excellent passer. Love his decision making, and really think he will be a legitimate three-level scorer.
I was just thinking of a weird pro comparison that I was going to have a hot take and throw it out there, and I just realized. Okay, yeah, I might go out here and say this. Everyone listening, you guys can call me crazy. So while you're describing all of that, I was like, he reminds me of a guy that's playing in the NBA right now, just the way he plays the game. Maybe his projected like impact at the NBA level. Obviously, this guy was a much better shooter in college than him from deep, but they're both averaging around the same area for points, sort of in the same ballpark for the rest of the categories. I get Jalen Brunson vibes. And I'm not saying he's going to be like Jalen Brunson's about to get paid heavy his next contract. So I'm not saying like Iverson Molinar is going to be a guy that's about to get $20 million in a couple years in the NBA and free agency. But I just think that's if you're looking for what he does when we're talking about like pace and decision making, and yeah, he's not going to be a guy that's having 9 assists a game, but he also makes the right reads and keeps the offense rolling, and is a guy that makes a pass to make another pass, which is a wide open shot. Like he understands where the ball is supposed to go and how it's supposed to move. So, I mean, even his last I think it was like his last 4 games, he's shooting mid 30% from three. So I do think there's tools there. The shot selection I think, is promising. I do think he's in situations where he's forcing a lot of tough shots, but it's just weird because I don't know if it's needing to be repetition from outside. I don't know if it's just like what's going on this year with more of an offensive load, but like he gets the free throw line into the game and it's swish. Like it is automatic. He's almost 90% from the line and the touch is beautiful. I'm like you though. I feel like you're saying off the dribble, he's definitely got to improve when it comes to like pull up shots. There's plenty of intrigue with his game, and I don't know if I'm loving him because I have so much question marks about the hypothetical point guards ahead of him. I don't know if it's that level playing field that's kind of clashing together. I just think Molinar is this one guy that I really could see him being one of these guys that, almost lies in the weeds and has some strong workouts and just starts to inch up the board. And all of a sudden it's like Molinar went 25th, just because I think a team was like, hey, that is the type of rotation player we want, where we don't have to worry about him understanding how we want the offense to roll. I just really like his game. I think that's an intriguing player. So yeah, I'm calling out myself. I need to stop being a wimp and be bold about my Iverson Molinar love.
No, I'm glad that you brought up, or that you mentioned Brunson too, because the Mavs are picking at 21. Wouldn't surprise me if Brunson goes elsewhere in the offseason, because he is going to get paid. If the Mavs took Molinar at 21 to play alongside Luka and kind of be that Brunson replacement, I wouldn't hate it, because I think he is a better off-ball shooter. He'll get plenty of those looks playing with Luka. He's a good cutter. I really like his defensive footwork. I think he's a good on-ball defender. Needs to get a little stronger, but then he'd be able to attack closeouts and create and score in like that mid-range and at rim area. So I think a role like that is his absolute best case scenario, where he can just thrive off of someone else, the gravity that someone else on his team generates, and then use that to just make the right decision in whatever situation he's put in.
Yeah, I was completely listening to you. I was just almost kind of in a twilight zone looking at Molinar and Brunson's stats. They're like freakishly too similar that I'm like almost like, okay, wait, did I finally, for the first time in my life, find a good pro comparison that I created?
No,
didn't.
No,
didn't. Back to the drawing board.
Something will change. It won't. It never goes that smoothly.
Who else are you? Let's just open mic it. Who else are you kind of, let's say, heating up, or you're swimming in shark infested waters? Just let's just talk about whoever you want to talk about. Like, who are you kind of like, just it's on your mind lately, you don't know what to do, or you could just tell me someone you're really, really excited about.
So I think Taron Armstrong falls into that kind of category where I want to put him in the first round. I have him at 31. I can't quit him, man. At that size, I think he's the best playmaker in the country. I think he's a really good ball handler.
He's got to go back, know. Right? He has
Why?
to go back.
Why?
Because if he goes back and tears it apart, he might be a potentially lottery pick. I mean, I don't know. I'm doing hypotheticals. I'm just saying, I think that's the type of guy that if he goes back and really takes another step, then you're entering a really fun world.
So what would that step entail? Is it the shooting?
I think it's the shooting, and I think it's just, unfortunately, when you're in that, I'm not trying to call out Cal Baptist basketball, but I think when you're in that playing level, you need to just be like bonker numbers. And he was.
Sure.
And he still is putting up really impressive numbers. But I think if he could do that for another year with the outside shooting becoming more, like adding some more muscle, spending a year in the weight room, then you're like, okay, he's going to be seriously buzzing, because there's pops of everything. Like, I'm like you, when you watch him, there's pops of everything, but I don't know. I get your point and your love of like, okay, maybe this year, but I do think
I feel like if he wasn't wearing a Cal Baptist jersey, people would be talking about him as a lottery pick. Switch him and Blake Wesley, and what is the conversation?
I feel bad for Cal Baptist. No, no, I hear what you're saying. It's weird. I don't know if no, he'll stay there. I was gonna say, does he become like? They're not doing the stupid transfer thing where guys can just go transfer wherever they want, are they?
I thought so, but I think his
Are
brother's
they?
on the team, so
Oh yeah. Well, he's got brotherly love. No, I don't know. I think that's rich for me. I understand you can't fight that feeling anymore. You're ever love lost. Do you have anyone
so
else?
what about you?
You
While I
know,
search, is there anyone that
I'm really falling for EJ Liddell. I don't want to go too deep into that.
yeah.
Harrison Ingram of Stanford
Mm,
bugged me in the beginning of the year, and I'm sort of starting to see it, and I'm getting a little intrigued. And he was a guy I was out on, but for everyone that listened to my podcast on Draft Deeper, I always say keep going back and watching more slate of guys throughout the year. And I just finally saw some plays where I was like, whoa, okay, I see it. Like I see what people are talking about. There's just some intriguing stuff there.
so what is it? Just quickly dive a little deeper into that because I'm intrigued. I have him at like 36 right now. It's the
Right.
basketball IQ that really jumps off the page for me, but I'm not sure how that kind of lack of athleticism or lack of shooting really fits in yet. And I obviously need to watch more, as I do on most of these guys. But what is it specifically that's kind of popping off for you?
So I had him in the exact same range you had him.
Okay.
And I saw the same thing. I was like, okay, looks like a good athlete, young, some tools to work with. The shot looked solid. It just needed consistency. And then I saw him a couple times do some stuff off the dribble, just like the fact that he tried it and how fluid it looked. And
Okay.
he had like a step back or two where I was like, whoa, like, okay. Like, and then the basketball IQ, like you're saying, there just seems like there's, I think he's around 6'8" and he's young. I got him listed. He's going to be 19 when he's drafted.
Yeah.
There just seems like there's some upside there. And that's when I finally saw him showcase some of those, flashes. I was like, okay, whoa, I see it. Like I see what everyone's buzzing about. Cause I think I moved him up to 24th, which was a big jump for me from my previous big board. Cause I was kind of like, I don't know about him. I don't know why I'm not seeing it. And then I watched a couple more games of his and I was like, whoa, that got me. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So he's definitely one though I need to go back and watch more, like you're saying.
Yeah.
Like I need to watch everyone again. I could watch someone every single game and I'll be like, hey, I need to go watch them again. So it'll be interesting when I watch him again because I'll be wondering like, do I need to move him more or I feel pretty confident about that range.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think of anybody else. Sohan, I understand the intrigue. I'm not there yet. I did have him.
Okay, interesting.
Round.
I have him at 10.
Whoa! Tyler Metcalf. You kiss your mother with that mouth? I'm kidding. Sorry, Mrs. Metcalf. Why 10?
I think he's a legitimate 3-4 position defender. I think the defensive IQ is through the roof. I really like the passing, the rebounding, just the overall feel for the game. I think is really special. And yeah, I am also I know the shot hasn't really been there, but I think the mechanics are sound enough where just a few kind of tinkering things here and there make him a legitimate spot up threat. So why do you hate Jeremy?
It's Suhan, right?
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, I believe so.
I pronounced it incorrectly, I think. Can you, before I give you my answer, can you give me like, I hate pro comparisons, but can you give me just a name you're thinking of? Doesn't have to be perfect. Everyone listening, take it easy on him. I hate pro comparisons. I'm just saying, like, I'm a big believer of like vibes of or shades of, where it's like,
yeah. So I get a lot of like slightly less like a mix of like Jared Vanderbilt and Kyle Anderson.
Is it just you wanted to plug Jared Vanderbilt, so that's why you said Jared Vanderbilt? Because you're
well. Speaking of no, the way he rebounds and cuts and kind of moves off ball, and then how active he is off ball defensively. that's really where I see like the Vanderbilt stuff, and then like the passing, the kind of outside shooting, the movement, the basketball IQ stuff is really where I get the Kyle Anderson vibes.
I get like, and this is for people that don't realize how crazy I am, this should pretty much tell you how crazy I am. I get like a defensive minded, athletic Boris Diaw vibe
Yeah,
from
yeah,
watching him. And that's why I have him 28th, because I was like, I hadn't watched a lot of them. And I started watching them and I was like, okay, this is a first rounder. Like I just said, like, this is a first round guy that, you know, we've been doing the no ceilings composite big boards. There's plenty of movement. Guys have them all over the place. I just, from the brief couple of games I watched of Suhan, I was like, this is a first rounder, just because I was like, some NBA playoff team is going to be intrigued with the defensive ability, that upside he has, his age, his frame, just how much potential he has. And I was intrigued with the outside shot a little bit more than, like, I was like, okay, there's solid stuff there that can be worked with. I think it might have been the games I watched, and everyone listening, that is important, because I watched a small slate of games, and I think it's important, like those games I watched. I just saw a couple plays where I was like, his fundamentals defensively, it was against Bama, and he had a strong game against them, but I just saw him a couple times got switched onto smaller guards, and they just, Bama guards are explosive, so they gave him some problems where it was just like he got his body into them, trying to keep up with them. That happens. I understand. But I was just like, okay, fundamentals, he's a little upright. You just got to get down. Like, that's stuff you can fix. So, but he also made some plays in that game where I'm like, great decision, great pass, like rebounding his butt off. So I definitely see it there. I could see myself moving him up the more I watch. It was just amazing to hear you say 10. I was like, whoa, okay. But I do, like, Patrick Williams Rose, and is a guy with a similar vibe there, where it's like strong defender, plays the game the right way, young, where you think there's serious upside. So that wouldn't be a surprising one. And that's another guy that just gets in front of teams, and teams might be just like, whew, okay. And I think he's tough. I think he's nasty. And I have him 28th, and I was like, I'm probably going to end up moving him up way higher. So that's the only, I'm not hating on him. I'm just saying I'm warming up. I put it on the burner, and the burner just started to heat up. So I got to watch more film.
Well, I think that in a couple weeks, then we may have to have a more in depth debate on him. Then, especially if you don't see the light, and I have to take you to church over it, because I will.
I know you will. That's what it'll be fun. It'll be exciting.
So, is there anyone else you wanted to get any burning thoughts off on, or if not, what's the best thing about the basketball world you've seen?
No, I'm not going to do it anymore, because I could do this all night, and I don't want to do that for the listeners. We'll save that for another time. Best thing I've seen in basketball all week is my Boston Celtics making a trade for Derek White, getting really, really strong defensively. And I've just really, really enjoyed the way that they've been playing lately. I feel like Udoka's finally got his feet wet as a coach. They've been thriving since December. So yeah, I'm pretty pumped about that. What else, Metcalf? What's the best thing you've seen? And they're up by 27 at halftime against the Sixers. As we're recording, let's go. Sorry,
God, you're insufferable. You call me
I'm
out for
about
the
to be
Timberwolves
dying as a Celtics fan. I'm about to believe and get hurt really quick. What's the best thing?
Jared Allen making his first All-Star game. Well deserved. He's had a hell of a year, and that Cleveland team is a lot of fun. So yeah, I was really glad that he got in. But Rucker, plug away. Tell the people where they can support you, what you have coming up.
NoCeilings.substack.com. That's where I'm at. And my personal Twitter account is at Tyler_Rucker. If you guys want to chit chat, talk about life. What I've got going up, I will have a piece tomorrow morning while you guys are probably listening to this. I'm going to be diving back, going overseas with my foreign relations pieces. Pretty excited about the upcoming 2 guys from the international class I'm going to talk about. You'll have to figure out who it is tomorrow, but a hint, it's a electric point guard. So I'm pretty excited about that. And I'm also working on another prospect video, or I'm stirring who it's going to be on, but need to get that up. And yeah, Metcalf, you plug Metcalf. You've been working on great stuff. So what do you got?
I will have another Friday screener coming out soon. Well, this Friday, hence the name.
Nice. We're on a good roll there.
But I may have to coordinate with you because it sounds like we may be accidentally writing about the same person, so I may have to pivot. So
I can switch it up easily. So we'll talk after this.
Yeah.
You see that guy just making me shift my whole momentum.
It'll be TBD, but TBD. You'll just have to go over to No Ceilings and follow us to make sure that you find out. Please make sure to go follow Tyler Rucker and read everything he writes. It's really good stuff, especially his more philosophical piece he put out the other week. But once again, I am Tyler Metcalf. You can follow me on Twitter at tmetcalf11, and please make sure to subscribe to the No Ceilings Substack at noceilings.substack.com, where you can find all of our written work, and make sure to follow us on Twitter at NoCeilingsNBA. The Substack is completely free and gets delivered directly to your inbox. Zero excuses not to subscribe. If you really want to help support us too, please make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube at No Ceilings TV. We're really trying to do more stuff over there, more video stuff, and the bigger the following over there gets, that'll help us hopefully potentially generate some more income, which will only help us do more cool things for you guys and keep it free for you, because that's what we love to do. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and a 5-star rating. Until next time, see ya.